Stéphane is the CEO of FaberNovel, and he's going to tell us a lot of things, in fact. But you swear, Stéphane, that there's going to be no fake news tonight. No fake news. So, microphone, and without further ado, our first question, in fact, is French tech the new black? No, kidding. So, the theme of the conference is high tech, high touch. So we're going to talk about about technology, but also about the human side of technology. And you have an amazing specificity, because I think you're the first to combine let's say the scientific part, the coding, with the advertising part. So you have this specificity. So you're both, you're also an advertising agency, and so you have recently merged with another company to make a new value proposition, a new offer, and this is very interesting. Can you tell us a little more about it?
Of course, yeah. So, good evening first. Thank you for having me. I'm very, very happy coming back to ESCP. I left the school about 2 years ago, and just told you that the first time I met internet was there. We had computers in rooms at that time. I had my own computer, but we had computers and printers, and the first time I had an email address and I had the access to internet was here. And then I don't know if you still have that kind of strange addresses, but I had some things like six figures at ESCP.eu or FR, can't remember, but that was a long time ago now. And thank you for having me. Thank you for offering me to share some feedback and what has been my trajectory since these 20 years. And you said that we merged and that we were kind of combination of different activities. The first thing is that our name, that's in our name, and then I choose a Latin name, FaberNovel, so that I had to claim my European roots, just like you guys here with the ESCP, and that one of the reasons why when I choose a name, I decided not to go for an English name, but I wanted not to say that we had to be ashamed, not being, that's coming from the Silicon Valley, where we have offices, by the way, but that was my first claim. And Faber is to make, to build. And from the very beginning, we wanted to think of what will be the future, but to be able to build this future. There is something that a quote by a science fiction novelist, his name is William Gibson, who said something that I think about this quote maybe 10 times a day. That is, the future is already here, but it's not evenly distributed. Which means that actually, if you look all around, if you look in the world, if you look in different industries, if you look in different, let's say, activities, you will find the future. The future is already here. Our point at FaberNovel is to distribute it, and as evenly as possible. You know that we are in a world where there is more and more inequalities. It's been very, very well documented now. That's by economists, just like Piketty and many more. And I guess that we need to distribute evenly this future between the people, poor, rich, between the industries, high tech, low tech, luxury, is the retail. But at the end of the day, and to answer your question, finally, I guess that we had to find the right combination between old and new that skills, and between different sectors, just like high tech, advertising, consultancy, and many more to come. That's we just add, and that's I don't know if it's a scoop. it's definitely not fake news. But we just launched a new activity at FaberNovel dedicated to CFOs, and that goes with financial advisory, financial analysis, and that's brand new, and that's something that's one more activity to all our that skills and businesses in Paris, Shanghai, San Francisco, New York, and that make a lot of sense just to bring some more skills within the group. We are about 400 people now.
What is really also very interesting, well, of course, Stéphane is a great alumni of the school. And I remember, it was maybe 12 years ago, we had some meetings, and I remember very well that you anticipated a lot of things that are happening now. So it's interesting because you had a clear view about some of the developments like social media, like we speak today of artificial intelligence, deep learning. You were already interested in all those topics. And the other thing, at the time, because you're promo 97, I think I'm promo 88, a little older, and I was writing and publishing books on globalizations, and you were a student, you were already one of the first person to be connected to internet here. So Stéphane is a real, wouldn't say a geek, but somebody who really, from early on, was very involved and very interested in all those technology. So it's important because in this program, which was in fact co-constructed with teachers and alumni of the school, which is an important point. We try to push, the students, the participants, to anticipate, where the ball will be. And Stéphane has been very good at anticipating. Nevertheless, I had a question which I was really dying to ask you. There's a bestseller at the moment called "The Driver in the Driverless Car," which is kind of amazing, describing this singularity moment, I think, which is supposed to be the moment where there's going to be a new balanced scorecard, I would say, between the man and machines. But there still needs to be a pilot in the plane. So, or we hope to think so. And the pilot, by the way, is the CEO. So how do you see this coming? What's going to be the balance between all this technology progress and the human decision?
My experience till now is that we need more humans to work in our companies. That we're just hiring just like crazy. I just hired maybe 40 people last month, and I could hire even more people. We are just looking for more and more people to hire. So that's the point, or the moment when high tech will, erase some jobs, or it's just not there. It's we are, and it's a very, very strong belief that we are creating tons of jobs. At the same time, we are also destroying some older parts of the economy. Let's just think of Amazon and compare Amazon to the rest of the retail industry. And it's definitely not good news, just because it could be the job of your parents, your family, and of course we can be happy of that Uberization. That's Maurice Levy, Publicis former CEO, who attached that Uber, that's the name of that's taxi-like platform to be a new trend in the economy, having both more algorithms, more technology, and at the same time a kind of not jobless, but jobs that are not so stable, jobs that are not so well protected, no welfare, and that's something that we need definitely to look at. And that's one of the reasons why I still think that we need to add to that economy, to that high tech, that new economy we called it back in the days when I was a student, just like you. That new economy has to bring new values too, and I guess that's something that is still in progress. It's everybody wants its own Silicon Valley. Everybody thinks that it's gonna be, you know, just like in a blink that you could be able to build the next Google, the next Amazon. But actually, it took maybe 50 years before having, you know, the Silicon Valley able to build a Google, just a Google or Facebook now that are producing, you know, that type of unicorns just like crazy. But it took time, and we need to build our own model. So I'm not afraid. I think, and I'm very happy having this conversation here in a school. I think the only way to take the best of this economy, of these new technologies, is education. And we need to teach you guys, but also everyone, how to code, how to behave, and in front of a computer screen and so on. And of course, we need also to train people that are already in older companies, already in jobs that are facing up to this digital transformation, how to deal with it, how to how to change and adapt to these new skills.
So what's really interesting is what you're saying is that in fact job creation, creativity, and the human touch is not incompatible with scaling. And that's a good example because you're an entrepreneur, that's what you're doing. And on the contrary, that it can both can develop, maybe not harmoniously, but that technology can be also a leverage to create jobs and for creativity, and also that creativity can be a leverage. That's what I hear in technology. And by the way, we are developing at ESCP Europe a cooperation with Technion University of Israel. And this is a common theme, that this is also, all those new technology we call singularity is something which can also be something to help creating jobs. And by the way, we noticed at the CEO studio that, we speak a lot about givers and takers, but giving is also something in a company which is important, and it appears that people, givers in a broader sense, who participate, who do a lot of teamwork, can also be winners of a new kind. What I mean is that, first of all, leaders who can, like you do in your company, develop spirals of teamwork. It's important also to have employees, not only entrepreneurs, who are not dented by failure. Employees also who take risks and who try to unlock their creativity to give to the company. And then you add value. And this is something quite interesting. And in one of our CEO studios, we did this definition with one of our other alumni, is that we defined, in a way, a new kind of leader, which would be a master of the flows. Mastering the flows, both technological but also emotional.
So first, it's just like that jobless economy, or that just like robots eating your jobs thing. Is that for me? It's always funny to think that at the same time, when you think of holacracy, have you heard of holacracy? That very flat organization with actually no manager, and what should be that's the dream of startups, of many startups. That's only smart people with no boss, and that's the startup dream, no managers. But in the same time, when you think of the startups created that semi-god function of CEOs, of founders. Just think of Steve Jobs, just think of Jeff Bezos, just think of Elon Musk, with more than a semi-god. He's a superhero, that guy looks just like Iron Man. So it's something funny because I guess that what was so different when I was a student in this school was that, and Madame Levauche can testimony, is that at that time we had an entrepreneurship class which was called Stratégie PME. Okay? There was only 6 or 7 students in this major. Okay? But that was about entrepreneurship. But at that time, you had, to have your father owning a company, your uncle, and to be, I would say, not ambitious enough to follow that entrepreneurship major. So that's the startup dream that brought that CEO, superstar, that image of that's not exactly your question, but that there is a lot of folklore about CEOs and startups, and so it's, for me, it's always funny to think how people can say that we should have no manager, but at the same time, that behaving just like if they were superstar rock stars, and so they're just CEOs. And I was lucky enough about 10 years ago to welcome Zuckerberg in Paris. This was his first time in Paris. He was there for a couple of days. That was in 2009. That Facebook were only 5 years old, and I can remember of all the crowd coming and asking him for autographs, for pictures, selfies, and I was telling myself, well, what about that Total CEO, Danone CEO, LVMH CEO would have been, that welcomes the same way, that with autographs, and certainly not. So that there is something that is very, very interesting for me, is that entrepreneurship is also a pop culture now. It's and that's great for you guys, but it's always that's you're from the entertainment part. Well. Maybe we can remember that when we were younger, a long time ago, that when you were, that with a few friends, you had the idea of launching a group, rock and roll, pop, music. And now that's you guys, you think of becoming entrepreneurs, launching in startups, but that's about the same.
It's right, even coders have their own agents now, I think.
Yeah. It can be. So first, now that what about CEO? CEO are lucky enough to be at the right moment, the right place. That's what happened to me. That's I started in the internet industry just because I graduated in 1997, and that was the very beginning. That was, that was just light, and I came, and that was open, and that was a time when you could be expert of anything in a couple of weeks. It's less and less true, but that's maybe you could find, that's the subject where you can be an expert, which is very important in maybe a bit more than a couple of weeks, maybe a few months. I was amazed 2 years ago. There was a student, one of your colleagues here at the ESCP, who came to me and told me about blockchain and Bitcoin. And to be honest, and I won't give his name, he's a real expert now. He did not know anything about blockchain and Bitcoin. And he worked, and after a few months he came back and said, well, he's an expert, for sure. And now that he's doing a lot of money, and that was a couple of years. So you think that if Bitcoin, which is not doing so well for the past few days, has been doing just like crazy for the last 18 months. So that's, I think he's living quite well of having decided at one stage that he'll be an expert in blockchain, Bitcoin, and dedicating his energy and time to becoming one. So that you have to be lucky and choose something and bet on it. Second is the team. You're not a CEO without a team. So I don't know if you already saw that's great YouTube video when you see a guy dancing alone in the park and it's a real leader. It's not so important that the first one that follow the leader that are absolutely key. Talk about Catholicism, apostles. That's the one that says that he is the guy. And so that you need this guy. So that CEO, I guess, and are great are choosing or being magnetic enough to have these great people to his or her project. Third skill, and very important skill for me is, you were talking about flows. I would talk about rhythm. For me, the CEO is a matter of rhythms. You're the one who knows if it has to go faster. Usually that's faster and not slower, but that's even faster. And if this one needs to be a priority and even faster before the other one, and that it's so much about rhythm. Myself, I know, and that's feedback from my colleagues, is that I can tell, that's very intuitive, that when something will come in the, let's say, 48 next hours, or if we're gonna win, if we should stop and wait, if it's something that is absolutely key, rhythm. And you also need to think of rhythm just like, just an example. Don't ask me why. But usually, when you win something, when you win a contract or an assignment, or when you have good news, and it happens on Friday afternoons. When it's a bad one, that's Monday afternoon or Tuesday morning. Why? After maybe 15 years, I told myself that usually people are happy, that giving you good news before going on weekends, and they don't want to just to I would say bad words, just to have you having a very bad weekend. So that they prefer to leave it. That's the way it is, and that all of us are about that. Just like it's rhythms are absolutely key, and you need to master all these rhythms. That are very humans, and sometimes it's about algorithms too.
It's funny what you say about you mentioned entertainment, but we say that content is king and distribution is queen. And at the ESCP Europe, we say that education is king, but online education is queen. And on the second part, Professor Emmanuel Zilberberg is going to have a few questions about this, I think. And now, I think I see Fabien, our great teacher, Fabien Geuze. I think he's quite interested in knowing a little more about how your journey began. But let's.
The classic rule in the CEO studio is also to examine how a CEO became a CEO, and then afterwards to try to understand what is the reality of this job, or this day-to-day job. But first, I think we need to perhaps to make a little break before moving to these ones, because your company is quite disruptive. So could you perhaps first, summarize what is the business of FaberNovel? What is the business model? How do you make money also? And afterwards, we'll be able to understand more the specificities of your job in this kind of thing.
Okay. So there are many ways to describe what we're doing and what we've been doing for now almost 15 years. Actually, it's not so new or disruptive. Fortunately, in many ways, and unfortunately, on some others. It's a kind of consultancy that's business services that we are offering. But we are doing it the startup way. We are digital natives, and I guess that the way we offer our service, the way we distribute our services, the way we hire people, that's the experience we offer our clients is new, and that way I hope disruptive on many sides. We have 4 different activities. One is FaberNovel Institute. It's about training CEOs, C-level people, executive committees to that entrepreneurship, digital culture. I think that we are world leaders in learning expeditions in Silicon Valley or Shanghai. That's every couple of weeks we have an executive committee from CAC 40, CAC 40, or that's Standard & Poor's 500 companies that come to our offices, and we have them meeting. That the Google, Apple, Facebook of the world, but also that startups that we chose to and that makes sense for the businesses. But we are also in charge of education platforms for companies, that's employing hundreds of thousands of people. So we are very much about upskilling to what is the next economy, that's the next jobs. That's what I was saying about what will come next and how you need to train your workforce and to make them ready for what's coming. Otherwise, you're just dead. Second one is FaberNovel Innovate. So that's, I would say, it's a strategy advisory. So that's just like McKinsey meeting IDEO or Frog. So that's what we had. So that was back in 2003. That we say that design, just like industrial design, would be key to decision makers, and that you won't be able to have a proper strategic vision without adding design. And adding design is a way to present things, but that's also a way to conclude your assignment with a prototype more than with only PowerPoint and slides. We study, and we've been studying for now years, all the big digital behemoths, just like we started with Google in 2006, but also Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and LinkedIn, and Uber last year, and Tesla this year, and we make studies that we share very broadly, and that are that studies that are viewed by millions of people on the internet. That I guess that we have the slide decks with most views on SlideShare, LinkedIn, and so on. So that even more than Mary Meeker, with goddess of digital trends in the world. And now she was an analyst in the bank, and now she's at Andreessen Horowitz. So it's again, FaberNovel Innovate is about strategy and design. Then we have FaberNovel Technologies, that's coders, that we build things. We have people that know how to code platforms, and that's a place where we try to offer that super that's powers of startups to big corporations, just like big banks, insurance, retail, and so on, and that we offer them platforms. That's just an example that we help a very big retail company in France to have one single app to manage its thousands, or it's actually that's hundreds of thousands of references on a single database in real time. And so that's very, very huge challenges, and it's very, very technology driven. That's almost only coders. And then we are, for that part, mostly based in Europe, just because that's we've been working with LinkedIn, with Apple, and so on. But each time that we've been working with them, they stole our employees, and it's been pretty hard to keep them. So that now we're a bit more dedicated to big European companies that need to be transformed, and in that case, our employees are very happy staying with us. And we also have a fourth activity that's called data and media. That's about performance, and so that when you have a digital asset, and just like a platform or an e-commerce website, you're just waiting for your customers to come. So that's, it can be great, but if you don't have any customer, it doesn't make any sense. So how do you add performance? How do you have traffic on your platforms and e-commerce websites? And we hired many people coming out of Google, and then we have a very, very good team. We just won, and I'm very, very proud of that. That was last October. We won that 53 brands of L'Oréal, and we were in charge. Publicist in charge of the display, and at FaberNovel was in charge of all what comes with data and performance. So that digital performance part. And the last one I just told you is about finance, and that's finance, both communication and all that comes with investor relationships and so on at the digital age, and we just we're very, very convinced that we needed to build frameworks and way to assess what is the value that a digital asset or a digital strategy can add to a company. So that's the reason why we called it alpha. So that's how can you add some for companies that are that's traded on the markets. That's how can they that communicate and better valorize and capitalize on their digital strategies. I know if it's clearer. We are 400 people, 400 super smart, and I love my team. That's thing I'm the most proud about. And we're based in Paris first, but we're also based in San Francisco, New York, Shanghai, and we just started a branch in Singapore and Switzerland.
Thank you. So, would you say that you are the new consulting companies in the digital world?
Again, that may be one of the reasons why it's not so clear, and you had that first very good question. I really don't feel I'm a consultant. I think my colleagues won't recognize themselves as consultants. We more, that's nice entrepreneurs for hire. It's when I said earlier that we are a full stack, just like when you think of that's development and computer science, full stack, and when you are, it's a matter of development when you go from the user to the machine, so you're full stack, and I guess that we are a full stack digital transformer. So that we have all the skills and different, that's expertises just to totally transform a company and to bring it to the digital age. So Actually, yes, we have a business model that is one of consultancy, but I'm pretty sure that we just want people to have a different experience. We don't deliver slides. We don't sell it just like consultant will do. We just try to have different people. So it's I hope it's pretty different. And I know also that what I love so much about my job is also that we need to sell something that is not only, you know, time, not only, you know, that's brain power multiplied by time. Just an example. When we had an executive committee from a very big, number one by the way, luxury firm, and we had the executive committee working with us, and we were thinking of their digital strategy, and I think that normal consultants will have asked for maybe 3-6 months to work on it and have, you know, that people at the CEO level, you know, that's in the building, working before the others, leaving the building after the others, and at the end of maybe that's 3 or 6 months, presenting their work in front of the executive committee for maybe a couple of hours. What we did is that we had lots of entrepreneurs, inspiring entrepreneurs, and then coming and presenting them their jobs, their projects, their company. After we had them, you know, that trying to code, learn how it was working. We had them go on Uber, that was a few years ago, and go to an Airbnb. We had a dinner at the Airbnb, and we met entrepreneurs again. And the day after, we had them working with us on this, you know, the digital strategy. And actually, the output, I'm sure, was way better than having someone working for 6 months. And I think it comes with that experiencing. And I hope that we're inventing something that comes with that experience part of services, and I would call it experience consulting in some ways.
And about the, we're seeing emerging here kind of your qualities as a leader. You're certainly an opportunity provider for others, and you already said that you could see a CEO as mastering the rhythms. But I'm gonna throw at you some kind of expressions to go deeper in the, you know, your kind of leadership. I don't think you would define yourself as maybe as a learning zealot. I don't know, you know, expression. Personal disruptor, tough-minded optimist. Eager experimenter, maybe more. Let's say, you know, we were lucky enough here to have Carlos Ghosn standing not very far from where you are now, and questions from the. I'm taking an example with Renault, and also, you know, with the driver in the driverless car, and the questions by the Tribune Association of ESCP Europe. But, you know, his explained that in difficult situation, what is important is try to extract the opportunity and convince people to bring them with you in a win-win situation, and you know, make people do with you when you anticipate it's worth it, things that they don't want to do, and even more if you can make them feel that they've grown through the process, you know.
My style, and I'm certainly not saying it's the style or a perfect style, would be exemplary. I think that you can ask for something that you don't know. You can ask for something that you don't know. That's it makes sense, but you, as a matter of efforts, as a matter of engagement, you can't ask more than what you're giving yourself. So that's exemplary. I guess is a good way to lead people. second would be, it's nice to me, but that's your question also. That's I would say visionary. So that you have to show people that you know what will happen. It's a very good way to have people being confident and trusting you in your leadership, in your decisions. So that's very important. And so it's I guess you need to make bets and to explain what you're doing. So that's both visionary and communication is absolutely key. And the third one would come with empathy. You definitely need to pay attention. That's my style again. You have very great entrepreneurs and CEOs, and actually some say that you can be an even better CEO entrepreneur with less empathy. But that's not my style, and that may be one of my problems for later on. But I think that you need to pay attention to people and see when they're that's aligned, not aligned, satisfied, frustrated. When you have someone that is not, that's with the others, or that someone who's suffering, you need to come to him and just talk to him and it's funny just because when you are a CEO, when you're, let's say, number one in an organization, you suddenly realize that you are a bit funnier than before, and people that laugh way more to your jokes and it's so you can use this towards people and just show them attention and that's the way I do it.
Still about this leadership style, you seem to have, points of comparison with, interesting enough, with sports coaches. Things like that it seems that you set high standards and stick to it. You spoke about this. Also know when to control, when to let go, to adapt, to match the message to the moment. And what I noticed also, which is not obvious, is this span of what I call the span of control and span of accountability. It's not obvious when to control, when to let go. And this is something which is not, you're also in a field where you have to manage egos. And in tech, there are, I think, kind of great egos too. So, you mentioned entertainment before. There's something in common, is that when you have people who are, very good at what they're doing, they, as we say, they treat their proposal as the center of the universe. They want to deliver urgently, and they're not dented by failure. They are so. You're at ease with, obviously, quite, but with managing that. All these egos in technology at the moment, and how do you balance it with the other important things inside a company?
Well, another very important quote I'm thinking very, very often about is Peter Drucker's quote saying that culture eats strategy for breakfast. So for me, culture is absolutely key, and that's something again that startups brought to the rest of the world and the rest of the corporate world, I guess, with that incredible deck from Netflix. I don't know if you already saw it, and that's pretty old now. It's maybe 2010 or something like that, and that's a marvel. And as a CEO, one of your main responsibility comes with the culture and the constancy of your culture. I don't know great organization where that individuals are coming before the culture. And for what I know best, FaberNovel, it's people are coming to learn. And what I love so much about my job is that, again, I tell it, each time I have to talk to my colleagues, I tell them that we are incredibly lucky to have a job where you can be very young, but an expert. That's what I just told you before. And so myself, I consider that I can learn from our trainees. And there are some projects where that train me will be much more, that's relevant than myself. So it's not so much about egos, and we don't pay so much attention to egos, but to relevancy, excellence, and convictions.
Je m'appelle Caroline Pandreau, j'ai 29 ans, je suis directrice de projet chez FaberNovel. Ça fait 4 ans et demi que je travaille avec l'équipe FaberNovel sur des projets pour nos clients, des projets d'innovation. Ce qui m'a plu quand je suis rentrée chez FaberNovel, donc après avoir fait une école de commerce, la première chose c'était de pouvoir travailler avec un collectif de personnes que j'ai trouvé tout de suite très inspirantes, des gens qui sont très créatifs, mais aussi très exigeants parce qu'on travaille quand même avec des grands groupes qui attendent de nos projets qu'ils aient beaucoup d'impact. Une culture de travail assez jeune, où on cultive aussi le goût d'innover et parfois le goût du risque. Et ce qui m'a beaucoup plu. Et également la curiosité, parce qu'on travaille sur tout un tas de sujets. Personne n'est spécialisé dans une industrie, donc tous les jours je peux travailler pour le secteur de l'assurance, mais aussi des transports, de l'immobilier, des médias. Alors moi je suis directrice de projet en charge de la partie qui s'appelle Customer Experience. Ce sont les projets sur lesquels on travaille sur la définition du parcours utilisateur. Donc quelle que soit l'industrie, qu'on parle d'assurance, d'immobilier, de santé, on essaye avec une équipe de designers, d'ingénieurs et d'analystes de trouver la proposition de valeur qui aura le plus d'utilité, le plus de sens et le plus de simplicité pour l'utilisateur. Dans Customer Experience, notre travail c'est vraiment de traduire le métier de nos clients en un parcours digitalisé, même dans les points de contact les plus physiques, pour avoir quelque chose qui, sur tous les canaux, ait de l'utilité pour le client final.
For me, when you're young and you're starting an organization, you need to be trustful. So that means that when people ask you something, you have to deliver. I'm sorry about that. It's not so creative, but that's you can have, you can forget to wake up sometimes, but it can be every morning. So that trust is number 1. Convictions are number 2. When I meet young people, and usually when I receive emails from trainees or young people that ask to meet me, I usually say yes. And what is funny, I call it the rendery. Do you know rendery? You know judo? It's when you have a black belt and a white belt that can, play together, let's say, and it's that rendery thing that the black belt and the white belt has to learn something, each one on their side. So that's white belt will learn for sure, but that the black belt also has to try to learn something from the white belt or test something, and so it's. For me, in my job, when you talk about social media, digital usages and so on, I have so much to learn from young people or from our trainees. So that there is no one that can say, that I know, and you will do what I think is, that's what I need to do. That's it can be. So.
By the way, that's interesting for the students because you're speaking about reverse mentoring too. That's also the case for teachers here.
For me, a key principle at FaberNovel is what we call infinite onboarding, so that we are every day onboarding. Every day you're coming, that just like, it can be your first day at jobs, it'd be scary and exhausting. But you need to start every day just like learning things. You can start a new job and learn new things. And in your list you had something with learner, and we love
learning zealots.
Learning zealot. It's what is so great about internet, that you can learn so many things. Wikipedia, Google. So that's and that what I think that's the best for our generation. That we can learn every day, and that's what I told some of your colleagues for their graduation. Is that I guess that's your generation, you are so much more about what you will learn, and when compared to my generation at school, when it was more about what we will earn, and the more you will learn, the more you will earn. I'm sure about that.
And also, one thing we noticed across all our CEO studios is that a lot of leaders tend to think that strategy is about execution, is a lot about execution. Let's go back a little bit to Fabien's preoccupation about, in our CEO studio, we usually ask the question like, where do you come from? How did your journey begin? So it's quite tempting to go back to your first days at ESCP Europe as a student. And I think Fabien is very interested to how did it blossom, the progression from your early days at the ESCP Europe, like you're an entrepreneur. So how did you? So it's not only about becoming a CEO, it's a first entrepreneur, and then you hire people. But how did it develop inside the fact progressively who you wanted to be? Because it's very interesting for the participants to know how do you become Stephane Distinguin? In fact, it's.
So both my parents were teachers, so I had absolutely no experience. It's. I love my parents, for sure. I'm very, very grateful for our education system. But teachers, I don't know if it's the case if it was only my parents, but I think not. But we've been just, that we had only other teachers in our friends for maybe my 20 years, I was 20 years old. I only met teachers for all occasions, so that I had absolutely no clue of what is a company, how it looks like, what is to be an entrepreneur, what is to be a manager. So I came to ESCP just because I was not so bad at school, and I loved, many things. That's the case. Maybe that's the very beginning. I'm not so good at choosing things. I love so many things. I'm very curious. So I love mathematics. I love French. I love philosophy. So that was a no choice option actually. And then, but in the same time, I always told myself that I would have loved to be a designer, an architect. That's. I was not, that's. I didn't dare, that's to embrace that career, being an architect or a designer, and I was not so good at designing things. But I told myself, well, one day I will try to do something that is just like design, and actually, for me, entrepreneurship is a way to design things. It's just like you have, that's 3 different dimensions. So that's 2 ones that make products, and the third one would be a business model or something, or organization. And so that just like you are adding some more dimensions or complexity to your project or product. So, so that's what I had in mind at that time, and also something. I guess very important, that there is nothing that I cherish more than freedom and independence. I couldn't think myself having a boss for very long, so that I could, deal with it for maybe a couple of years, but certainly not more than that. I was sure that it will be my own boss very soon. So that.
By the way, how did you leave your first job?
It was, that's a famous internet bubble. So everything was dying. So that was pretty easy to leave something that is dying. That is not very living, actually. Just like it's more. And that was back in 2003. So that's I was a venture capitalist at that time. And as you probably know, that startup were not doing so well back in 2001, 2, 3. So in 2003, we had no fund anymore, and so I had to quit. And I told myself, well, what could I do? And that was the right moment. And to get back to your question, I'd be happy to answer to two questions at the same time. That's the business model part also. I told myself, well, there is an incredible mass of corporations, big companies that need to transform themselves, just because there was internet crash, that's at the end of the internet bubble, but at the same time it changed everything. Entrepreneurship was possible. That's what I told you about SMEs and that's SME strategies back in the days here in ESCP, and now that startups was something that really didn't disappear with the internet bubble. Big corporation had to adapt to internet and to and to innovation in general, and that was. Google was 5 years old, and so that something was cooking. So I told myself, well, these big old corporations will need, that new agents to transform them. And at the same time, I told myself, it's cheaper and cheaper and easier to launch a startup. So we'll have two legs. One will be for corporate services. We'll, get paid as much as possible by big corporations to help them think and act just like startup. But at the same time, for ourselves, for our sake, for our, that's just like having a shop window, but also for our business model, we will invent something that we are the first to call excubation. That excubation is a FaberNovel's invention. That's we copyrighted the name. We have the trademark, and that was back in 2004-5. And we said, at the same time, we should be an excubator. And being an excubator is the exact contrary of an incubator. An incubator is looking for small, tiny projects to welcome them, to warm them, to help them grow. Whereas in an excubator, we have ideas that become projects, and we want to throw them out of the organization to make them sustainable and cooperation and as big as possible. We started, I told you, in September 2003, and we started with a few experimentation with in the smart city field. First one was we were the first ones in the world to bring time schedules to cell phones. That was cell phones and not smartphones at that time. So that we're using WAP. I don't know if you wireless application protocol that was internet on cell phones, not smartphones at that time. And so it was very successful. And afterwards we said, oh, what could be interesting, would be to sell a bus ticket or underground tube ticket with your phone and to download this ticket in your cell phone, not smartphone again. Just for you to know, and if you the iPhone came in the US in July 2007, in Europe in 2008. So we were in 2003. So that was just like, I don't know if you have mine, I kept it still. It's a new one, but that was just fonts like that. Okay? And this second exploration, which was how to download tickets in cell phone, became Digitic. If you heard of it, if you already used that service, and which is now the #1 platform for entertainment and theaters and concerts, sports. And that was in April 2004 that we launched this company that we sold to Vivendi back in 2010. That's in only 6 years. And that was the real competitor to Fnac and Fnac is France Billet, and the other one was Ticketnet, and that became the biggest platform for entertainment on the internet, selling that everything about that, about live events, and we made the bet at the time. We bet that it was a very interesting moment when music was totally disrupted. Nobody saw really, that was back in the days again. So that was way before Spotify and Deezer and SoundCloud, and so at that time we were just like downloading music, but actually it was just like piracy. Sorry about that. So music had no more business model, and the only business model for music was live events. So that's the business was in events and no more in the music industry that was LPs, CDs, and so on. That was also a very strange moment when Madonna, that you already changed his manager. It was no more a music label, but what we call in French a tourneur. So that's the company that deals with her tours. And that was the same for Supertramp, for Rolling Stones, and that were making a U2, that were making maybe 60-70% of the turnover with tours, and no more with their CDs, that were only 5 to 10% of their turnover. So that's what we launched. We launched every 12 to 18 months. We launch a new startup, and so it's our second business model. So we have services, but we also have stakes in lots of different startups, and that are just a way for us to train and to make things, to faber things, to FaberNovel, and so at some stage to make some money selling.
What's interesting, Stéphane, what you're saying is that I'm making a comparison between business models in entertainment. In fact, there was this era when, music, well, we usually say nature finds a way, but now technology found a way, because the way to listen to music changed, in fact. But the business model in entertainment at this time, just before this disruption, was, let's say, production, creativity production, then distribution, marketing, and the consumer experience was more classic. And then it totally shifted to spotting talent, aggregate talents, and then the consumer experience began to change totally on tablets and smartphones. And speaking about Netflix, maybe they were the first to understand that you needed to have the algorithms, the analytics on the one hand, and they were very good at it. They were the first to understand that they needed to produce content, entertainment content themselves, and becoming an entertainment studio themselves. But what was amazing is that they understood both cultures, Silicon Valley cultures, but also the entertainment culture, and maybe they were the first one. And to make a good sign for you in the future is that you seem to have also this thing about using the analytics, the algorithms, to understand and to kind of, mastering this Silicon Valley culture, because you've always been, attracted and working this. But on the other hand, as far as you are concerned, you also have another cultural aspects, more about communicate about what you're explaining about also virality advertising, and remember like a few years ago you were already spinning out your vision about this. So you have those two culture, what I call high tech, high touch, live and digital, by the way. And this is maybe a good sign to invest in your company. And I like the definition about the CEO as an investor, of course, as an architect, as a designer. That's what I mean. There's something about, you have a lot of respect for content. And we had this discussion at the time because, of course, there was the problem with piracy. And at the time when you were speaking with telecom companies, they may not have had, now they've changed, but this vision about copyright or about intellectual property. But now things have changed, and you have companies using this intellectual property in technology, and there's a more balanced scorecard. So we can. It seems to shape the future. By the way, of course, there's going to be time for the audience to have some questions, maybe, and then after we'll have Professor Emmanuel Zilberberg asking you questions. But I see maybe in the audience they might have some questions now.
Jingle.
Yeah, it's like on a TV show. I'm Ludovic Bu. I'm Executive MBA 2007. And I launched several companies, or participate to launch several companies, always ahead of the market. Like I launched a carpooling company in 1997, which was 10 years before BlaBlaCar. And so my question is, well, you were talking about Spotify or Deezer. There was launched by Yahoo 2003, and it didn't make it through the time. So how do you do to launch companies that make it through the time? How do you consider that your idea or your concept is okay with the time to market?
Okay, first, I'm just talking about the successes with you tonight. That we could talk about failures, and I'd be happy to talk about failures. So that's of course, it's not only successes. Second, it comes with rhythms again. I guess it's. Sorry if you are too early, and I hope it's not all the time. Yeah, has it been all the time for all the companies?
All my companies have been ahead of time, but all of them are still alive. So
that's great.
Yeah, but they are not the startup successes. They are still small companies.
Yeah, but it's what would you call success? No, it's funny if I'm asking you this question, that I'm always I'm a bit sad that when you think of a successful entrepreneur, that's someone that has sold his company. That usefully that's a successful entrepreneur is something that's arrived, and in that case, that's what we call exit. And I guess it's quite strange to think of success and exit in the same time. I hope you are successful and happy in all your different ventures, and that's also what it's about. First, to get back to FaberNovel, I am passionate about people, and I'm very curious. So my model, I've been talking about clients, I've been business models, but the thing I built is a platform of skills. And I'm very, very much about that. That's what I want, is to have as many skills and as many bright people and brains as possible surrounding me. So the activity, the business model is just a consequence of the fact that I want to be surrounded by a smart bunch of nice people. So it's and it allows me to be ready to launch any business in a couple of months. Just in that case, it's to answer your question. It's just like we are a kitchen, so that we have ingredients. We are and we're gonna cook. Sometimes be absolutely disgusting. Sometimes it be a nice recipe and it's be a success, just like Digitique, just like Bureau à partager, just like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, that have been successes. But it's and again, when it comes about that special moment when you incorporate, you launch the company, that's the conversation we had earlier on CEO. You definitely need an entrepreneur. It's I don't know if it's been the case for you, but I know that I can be the CEO of maybe a couple, maybe 3, 4 different organizations, but it's pretty hard not to find the right person to be in charge of the project and then to be the project, to sleep with it, to wake up with it. So it's what is the boundary of our model. It's for me it's even more about that special person than being right, having the right projects and being at the right moment. But and the thing is that the more you do, it's just like that's lottery. So that's it's independent probabilities. But at the end of the day, if you play often and then you have more chances to win. So it's pretty hard. But and I guess that there is no magic formula, and I'm always, and I think that's the same for you. Sometimes you see some projects that are big successes, and you say to yourself, "Wow!" It's sometimes I'm way more impressed by projects that are not big successes, but when the team is great, project is great, and something happened. By the way, at the very beginning of the project, it's mind-blowing to think of the number of projects that failed because the co-founders can get along so well for long enough. So that's it's incredible to see the number of projects that stop for personal reasons because your boyfriend, your girlfriend, is just fed up with the projects and that you prefer to, and I think it's a great choice. To go for your family life and then to get married more and so that's it's there's so many different reasons to succeed or fail. That is I haven't done the formula, unfortunately, but be sure that if I had it I will share it. It's not fake news.
Well, what's interesting is that you seem to see another question here. You seem to have a similarity with what Jeff Bezos recently said in an article that
I'm a bit more good looking, right? No, that's
that he was not so much interested in people who are smart, but people who are right most of the time, who can take tough calls and end up being right. So that's interesting. And also what we can see in your style is that you have this owner-managed attitude. The power of acting like an owner also. It's something interesting because you really have it, and it's an element of leadership too. This we don't speak about it all the time, but it implies also a certain responsibility to be an owner, and not only a manager.
We don't own as much, unfortunately, and that's again maybe one of the reasons to your question. That I guess that when you're Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, and of course I'm very impressed, but if you were a billionaire, I knew it. Sorry about that, but no. But I was just saying that would you think of Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk again? These guys with Blue Origin, with SpaceX, with Tesla, with all the with Washington Post, they just have billions to invest. So that's it's easier to be right when you can use that invest billions, than when you, just like you and me, we are just playing with ideas, and it's actually it's I'm not saying that we are poor or it's not working well, and I know that. But we are definitely not in the same category. And by the way, that's it's something that I've been talking about until now. It's a major concern for all of us. We need a better championship. We need Xavier Niel, for example, in Paris, what he's been doing with Station F, with Eco School 42, with many different projects, as a type of mogul thing, and being able to invest in many different projects, and that make a lot of sense, and that have big bets on the future. But we need many more people like that. And we need you, Ludovic, you need to get richer. I'm sure it'd be very good for all of us.
What's very interesting also as a school here, about what you say, is that in the United States there's always been a cooperation between the government, the schools, especially in Silicon Valley, and the university, the universities, and the company, the investors. For instance, in technology, QuickTime. This process was developed by Media Lab and MIT, and then so here we're catching up. But now the government has just announced that they are launching, 10 billion euro fund to really accelerate. And as ESCP Europe Business School, we're really involved in the fact that and concerned about the fact that it develops in Europe too, this kind of mentality. And now the government seems to take the right steps, but we don't think it's too late. But what you concerned about, we're all concerned about that. We need to have more leverage here and go quickly. And it seems that it's scaling is developing, but not as fast as I would like. So there's another question here.
Hello, my name is David Winkler. I am in pre-master in master management as you more than 20 years ago. And you talked about...
Okay, it starts well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you talked about success. And I wanted to know, you talked about success.
Yeah.
And I wanted to know the experience, the thing you are the most proud of with FaberNovel. Yeah, thank you.
Again, I told you that the team, for sure.
I wanted maybe a fact, maybe a service that you gave to Apple, or I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, I can give you examples. We were in the latest Apple keynote last year. We were on screen with Tim Cook and actually with Canal Plus, and that's my canal. I don't know if you have it. That is recognized worldly as the best TV app in the world. That's something that we built here in Paris, in Le Marais, Rue Sainte-Croix de la Bretonnerie. And so that's, we're very proud of that. But again, what I am the most proud of is when I get some applications from people that really want to work with us, and say that when someone says that I've been I wish, that's right now that's the period, so that's New Year wishes, and you receive that cards from people that you know and people that you don't know so well. Usually it's a very nice moment, just because that's people that you know very well don't need to send you a card. So that's people that you don't know so well, and sometimes it's also people that you really don't know. And I just received a card from someone, an entrepreneur, saying I've always wanted to make a FaberNovel of something, and I've been very inspired, and I'm proud of having built or created something that can be a model for others. That's maybe what I prefer and what the part of the success that I prefer. Otherwise, my second measurement of success would be my independence. So it's for sure that I have lots of responsibilities. I knew, that's periods when I slept not so well, and it comes also with the job of entrepreneur, of CEO. But actually, I can really decide what I will do tomorrow morning, next week, if I want to stop something, start something, and it's so great. And that's again, that's what I told you, that I started this company just for that type of feeling, and I'm very happy meeting it and being able to live it and to go on living it.
I think just another question now, and then after Professor Zilberberg will trade places, if we could say so, with Professor Fabien.
Are we finished, Fabien?
Yeah, no, sure.
And
For
we
the
will
sake
come
of
back,
time, let's
but
take a
yeah,
question and then
take
we'll
this
move
question.
to Professor Zilberberg's questions.
Professor Zilberberg is, by the way, member of a team in the school, really busy developing our online learning. I say live and digital, so he's making a new balance. Tell us about this.
Hello. Yep. Hello. Executive MBA from 2016. Jean-François Kitchegin. Actually, I have two questions for you. The first one is, how do you keep people motivated? Because you have several offices, all across the world. I don't know, how do you do that? Because it's difficult to keep, people motivated with the distance. Maybe yes, maybe no. The second question is what are the trends in terms of technology that you see around the globe? Maybe, in terms of services that you are selling. Maybe in France, I don't know, they're more into social, or maybe into something, and maybe in the US they're more into something else. Yeah. So those two questions.
Okay. So keeping people motivated is something that you really can be satisfied with. You really don't know when that's the image that comes to me each time is that that the Chinese circus people playing with plates, that, and so it's really hard. It's a lot of concentration just to I guess it's number one is about culture. Second is about hiring. It comes together, and again you need the right ingredients. Good projects. People come for good projects. So if they just have crap job and that make no sense, actually it's pretty hard to keep motivated, to keep oneself motivated. One of my tricks comes also with work conditions. Very nice offices. Be happy to welcome some of you at FaberNovel, or see in San Francisco or in Paris, that we pay a lot of attention, and I think it's really important. We will move this year for a very nice building in Paris. It's secret. All my team will know about it next week. And so we're working incredibly hard to have a wonderful place to work in. So and that's pretty hard, just because now that you have a flex office, that you have people that can work from home, and that's great. People that can work. One of my something I'm very proud of also is that I launched the second co-working space in the world in San Francisco, the number one in Europe, called La Cantine in that time. And now that Paris is number one in the world for co-working spaces. And that's something that I launched myself. That was 10 years ago, almost day to day. and so that I love that subject with workspaces. One of the reasons why is that the most digitalized you are, the more you know that you need physical to be interesting, amazing, to have your experience. So that's great digital experience makes necessary an even greater physical experience. And you know about that. Otherwise, you stay home, you have your smartphone, your computer, and you don't need to go to the office. So work conditions, premises are absolutely key. And you need the right people too. So that's something important. So that just like a bunch of friends. Yeah, you need someone that is funny, nice, and that's one of the reasons also when I gone back to we're not consultants. I was in a party that was last year, and I can remember I was with my wife, and there was a very good-looking young lady, and she told me that was working in, I won't tell you the name, but in a very famous consultant company, and she told me that she was in different parties, corporate parties, and that usually young men were coming to her and saying, "So where do you work, and for which of our partners?" And this young lady said, "I'm not working for a partner just because I'm an assistant." And suddenly, all the guys were leaving. And say, "Huh?" and for me, one of the things that is also very important for work conditions is that you don't have Übermensches or Untermensches. You know, that's in FaberNovel. So that we have people that are office managers and that are, for me, as much as important as any other, that's FaberNovelian, and you don't have different categories of people. So that you need, again, that's to pay attention. If you want to keep people motivated, you also need to have people that are coming to do their job and that are absolutely important when it comes about motivation, about premises, about that's a work experience, and they're absolutely key, just as the people that pay the bill.
That's a good illustration for the high-tech, high-touch theme.
So I'm the CEO of FaberNovel in the US, and I'm also the Chief Rebel of FaberNovel Group, which means that I'm creating a little bit of the mess that we love in an innovation agency, and I'm also in charge of the international development of the group. I like everything about my job. I mean, I'm very passionate about technology. I'm very fortunate to be in San Francisco, where a lot of things happen. And I think having the opportunity to be here, to do things, to have a place, a physical place, Paris Soma, to be able to host events, to be the ecosystem is something I'm very passionate about. But I also think I love working with people. And we're very lucky to have the best team ever, and working with our client, creating projects, building things with our team is really what I like the most. I decided to join FaberNovel US because FaberNovel US came to me. I actually met the Stephane Distinguin several years ago, about 10 years ago. And Stéphane and I always knew that one day we would probably work together. It took us a while. I created my company in between, and then FaberNovel acquired my company, and that's probably one of the best things that happened for us, but hopefully for FaberNovel as well.
That could be a good conclusion, maybe an overture. Well, now the clock is ticking, and we'll have to thank Stéphane really to have come to us and really share with us. Thank you for this sharing, Stéphane. And well, you can apply for an internship that could lead to a great job. I mean, what we said. This is interesting.
I'd be happy to get back for my lifetime warranty at ESCP sometimes.
Flies.